it's almost hot outside, isn't it? Considering what it has been, what was it, 11 degrees? And that day I think it's what, at least 30? Amen. It's like, oh boy, heat wave. I'm just grateful to be able to get out and about, and the sun is shining, so it's just grateful that things are, at least the attitude, we maintain an attitude of positivity, even though sometimes things that are going on around us are really challenging. But we move forward, right? My name is Carol Rhodes Dyson. I am a graduate of Howard University in art history, graduate of Maryland Institute College of Art in curatorial practice. And I have curated for a number of organizations. I was a curator at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum and curate part-time, curate for busboys and poets for all of their locations. So I curate in a lot of different, I curate a lot, and just really grateful for the opportunity and the direction, because I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do, but it was a gift. I was given the gift and I ran with it. So today, I'm always honored when Adrian invites me to come talk with artists, because I love to run my mouth with artists. And I first have to honor him for his vision of this space. The vision and the consistency and the groundedness that he has in providing the art and the art talks, and I love the folks that support him as well. And we're going to talk with Jay Durrah. And Jay, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm Jay Durrah. These are my pieces here. I call myself a modern day impressionist. I've been painting over 40 years now, but I've been painting in this style for the past 15 or so years. And I'm originally from the Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area. I'm a graduate of Howard University, but I'm not But I wasn't an art major. I was a political science major. I planned on going to law school, but that didn't work out. And after years of, this has always been a hobby of mine, just painting and drawing. And after some years and some layoffs, I decided to do this full time. So, and I've actually retired in 2021, so I am doing art full time now.
Well, what a blessing. I was reading somewhere where Romeo Bearden, he was a social worker in New York all his life. That was his full-time gig, so he could pay for being an artist. And then when he retired, he became a full-time artist.
Right. He lived in Pittsburgh at one point too.
All right. Early days, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So one of the first things I like to do when I have these conversations is kind of ground center the conversation in talking about your ancestors, talking about, because when I was looking up your bio and I was saying Durrah, and I'm, all respect, I'm just trying to figure out where did that's an unusual name. And in terms of, it was said it was Irish, and I said, what? So I really would like you to talk about initially talk about you coming here, or Pittsburgh, then coming here to DC, talking about your family, your influence, their creative influence. Let me stop asking questions and let you respond.
So, yeah, my last name was Durrah, and it's unusual. I'll let you know what I know. At first I thought it was like a French name, but once when social media started, I noticed that there were a lot of Muslims with the last name Durrah. So there could be some Muslim background in there too, but we're still trying to research that. As far as back as I know, my great grandfather was from Georgia, like Thompson, Georgia, and there's a lot of Durrahs in South Carolina also. But a funny story is that that's how my grandfather met grandmother is because my great grandfather's surname was Durrah.
Spell it D-U?
D-U-R-R.
Okay.
Yeah, D-U-R-R. And so I met my grandfather, whose last name was Durrah, so he was trying to see if there was a connection. Yeah. So, and actually, some of the paintings are of some of these people, like this painting here. What's Handlebars? Handlebars is actually Durrah. He was my great uncle. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And there's a kind of fascinating story behind that also. They were from Yankton, They were from Abbeville, Alabama, and they migrated to Yankton, South Dakota around like the 1900s.
What?
I guess it was a land grab or something. And so after that, I don't think they didn't stay in Yankton, South Dakota that long. I don't know how long they stayed there. But then my great grandfather moved to Pittsburgh, and that's how
So Pittsburgh was steel or what?
Yeah, it was a steel town. So a lot of black people were moving to Pittsburgh to work in steel mills. And like on the other side of the family is on my mother's side, her parents were born in Pittsburgh. So they've been there for before the turn of the century. And this painting back here, Baby Sis and Brother, is a painting of my grandmother and her brother when they were kids. I think that probably was around 1920, because she was born in 1916, and then she looks about 3 on that picture. Yeah. So, and he must have been about 6.
Very good, very good. Was there any creativity? Did any of your family draw or sculpt or anything? When I say sculpt, like maybe making, whittling wood?
Well, my grandparents were very crafty.
Okay, there it
Crafty.
is.
My grandmother used to sew and knit and crochet, and my grandfather, he just used to, especially after he retired, he got all these like leather making kits, and he would put together these paintings with beads and all kinds of stuff like that. And he was kind of like the one who inspired me. When I was little, I used to go to their house all the time and look in the TV guide, and there was this cartoon of in the TV guide that said, if you can draw this, you too can be an artist.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I used to draw.
It just dated us.
But that's kind of how I started drawing.
Very nice. Okay, very good. Good. So continuing on that, you started drawing because of the ad in the TV guide. When did you decide you were an artist? And tell us a little bit about this journey as an artist, and maybe some major events that were turning points.
Okay. So again, it was a hobby at first. So at first I was drawing cartoons, and then when I was 14, I drew this picture of Stevie Wonder on my bedroom wall, and I think it was the album Songs in the Key of Life.
Really?
Or it might have been, I think it was that one. There was an image of him on it. And so I drew that image on my wall, and it looked like him. And I said, okay, I can draw people. So after that's kind of started my love for drawing portraits. And in high school, I did like 2 paintings in high school, one in junior year and one in my senior year. I did a painting of Iman, and it looked just like her, and I thought it was very nice.
This picture of who? Imam?
Iman.
The model.
Yes.
David
So I knew I had some skills, but I just got caught up in life. So I wanted to be a lawyer and going to school and just working, and I didn't have time. Didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of painting. So I would do a painting maybe every 5 years, and then in 2009 I got laid off from my regular job at Verizon. So I said, well, it's either not. Was it 2000? Yeah, it was 2009. I said either it's now or never. So that's when I got serious about it, and that's when I started calling myself an artist. And actually,
You said 2007?
2009.
2009.
Yes, and actually one of the first paintings I sold was to my friend Lisa. She bought one of my first paintings for me, and pay me a decent amount. So I was like, okay, I'm on my way.
I guess I think about your interest was in political science and law, and at the same time, I don't see art being divorced. Divorced from those interests that you had. And so tell me how, in terms of that kind of connection, you were interested in why law? Were you trying to support or honor Black people, or and then you focus on portraits, which is honoring, which is a hero,
Right. So I love history. I always loved history throughout elementary, throughout college, everything. And so a lot of times I used to do a lot of portraits of famous people, and I think. And I do I definitely love Black history, so I do a lot of, most of my paintings are Black people. I do some paintings of other people from time to time, but most of my paintings are of Black people, because I want to represent us in our daily lives. I want to represent us in our history, our culture, and I just want, that's one of my goals, is to show our culture through my paintings. And I think it's a responsibility as artists that we need to reflect our culture and our history and our roots.
So back to this political science at Howard. When were you up there? Because I'm thinking about the uprising at Howard. Were you there then, or had that already happened?
Well, there were several, but we had one when I was there too. I graduated in '83, and actually we had a uprising in '83. James Cheek was our president at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that might have been.
No.
That was back in the '80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we had a uprising. It was a very interesting place. Farrakhan used to come through all the time. Kwame Ture was there. He was a past student, but he was organizing on campus. Actually, I used to belong to the All African People's Revolutionary Party back in the day. Yeah. So I was part of his organization. Actually, they used to have ALD, African Liberation Day, and I remember I painted a banner of Mao.
Over there in the park.
Yeah.
At Banneker Park.
Yeah, well,
I remember.
Malcolm X Park.
Oh, Malcolm X Park, okay.
Yeah.
I remember it too. Wow, though, that's that wonderful culture that we experience at Howard.
Yes.
Really that infusion and groundedness of the importance of.
And it inspires my art as I continue. It inspires my art. As I continue, I want to make sure that my pieces represent, have a message to them. I mean, so I can have a story to tell, and also something I can pass on to other generations.
Mm-hmm. Continuing that thought of inspiration. I know you were talking about your family, and you were talking about the portraits. What artists, what else inspires the work? I know you said you were an impressionist, a modern day impressionist. And I also see Africa over there.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't know what Africover was until I started painting. And somebody said this reminds me of Africover, so I had to go look it up. And one of the people I really admired, Stevens.
Nelson
Stevens, yes. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I had a chance to meet him. I met him in Miami one year.
Oh, okay.
I was down in Art Basel, and he was having a show. And I went to the show, and I introduced myself to him. I told him, people say my work reminds
Absolutely, I can see it.
of his.
I can see that, absolutely. So what other artists influence your work?
I like a lot of contemporaries like Charlie Palmer, Lisa Butler, some local artists, Alberts.
Alberts.
Yeah.
Woo, master.
Yes.
Master.
He actually wrote I did a book once, and he did the forward for it.
Yesterday, in the conversation with Adrian, when I first looked at the work, I was like, wow, when I look at the color,
Yes.
as we go, the explosion of color, I said to him, I said, you know, those oranges are almost like electric. They're like electricity kind of jumping off, helping to define, helping, you know, it's just giving additional life to the piece. And so I'd like you to talk about your use of color.
Okay. So I love color. I mean, so I used to I did take classes here and there. So I took some classes at the Portland one time, and it was like I think it was a watercolor class, but they said we couldn't use we could only use like 3 colors, like primary colors. So that kind of got me into doing, you know, painting people with different colors. But when I really got into my art, to this style, I was saying that the colors, I use multiple colors because nobody is really made up of one pure race. We're made up of multiple ethnicities, kind of blended together. And so the colors kind of represent the different ethnicities, the multiple ethnicities and mankind make us unique.
So is blue your favorite color?
I was a period that I was going through. But it is one of my favorite colors. And I was experimenting with different background colors on different paintings to see what colors make the other colors pop. And you mentioned that orange that is kind of vibrant.
Yeah, oh man.
So I mixed. I just kind of discovered by mixing opera rose and a medium yellow, it produces that bright orange. I use regular orange too, but that's normally the last color I put down. Is that orange? Well, white is the last color I put down, but also before that I use that mixture of the orange and opera rose.
I was looking at yesterday, Jim was talking about the inkwell, the aunties. You know, I love that too. I'm like, and the pineapple bag. I remember my grandmother having a pineapple bag.
Okay.
It just was.
Yes. Last summer I had the opportunity to show some work at a place in Martha's Vineyard, so I was getting some pieces together for that show. And this was the last one I did for that show. It was a couple of my friends at the Inkwell. I call it chillaxing.
Tell me about the title of the show. You and Adrian. I'm sorry, you have to tell me.
When the Creek Rises.
When the Creek Rises. Tell me about how you all came up with that title.
Okay, so Adrian calls it. So I asked Adrian, what are we gonna call this show? He says, I don't know. What's the name of one of your pieces? So I said, well, one of my newer pieces is called When the Creek Rises. So he said, that's it. So When the Creek Rises is this one right behind you. This is a young man with the life jacket on, the orange background. He's standing on the rooftop, and the street is flooded. So the creek is risen. And the creek, and that's a term that's used normally when somebody say, well, I'll see you tomorrow. I hope to see you next week or next year. And the response is normally
if the
when
creek
the Lord,
don't rise.
if the
Lord and the creek
Lord
don't
willing
rise.
and the creek don't rise. Yeah. So generally when the creek rises, it's bad. I mean, things have really gotten bad. And this was part of my global warming series. I did When the Creek Rises, When the Creek Dries Up, and When the Storms Blow down here on the corner. So I just started this like in maybe November or December. So if I had more time, it would have been a whole, it would have been, I got a few more on my mind. When fire comes, when famine comes also, that's going to be one of mine. And I also wanted to show some children because it's going to impact them more than it's going to impact us. I mean, we have more years behind us than we have in front of us, but they'll catch the full impact of global warming. So that's why I wanted to focus children, and I'll focus our children because a lot of times it's going to impact our children more because we're in areas where we might be. I know in Pittsburgh, a lot of the black neighborhoods were down by the rivers because those were the areas that flooded. So that's why I want to show black children in this series. But it also speaks to, I started painting these after the election. Actually, when I started. The day after the election, I started painting. because I think, you know, we're going to, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the future right now. And he's a climate denier. So this is one of the points I want to make to combat some of the things that he's doing.
I'm deep in thought listening to you. One of the things you mentioned was this is a recent piece, this was another piece. So let's talk about those periods, those time periods. What are some of the earliest works here that you have? And then can you kind of take us through that time periods? And I had mentioned earlier in your journey as an artist that there are three periods or three times in your life that kind of transformed your art. So take your pick. We can talk about the periods of art that are shown here and what you were thinking at that time. It's like you were talking about this is contemporary, this is now, okay?
Yes.
And then you have your family. When did you paint that? And we have the gentleman, or the person, walking their dog, you know, and then we have the landscapes, because it's the first time I ever seen some landscapes by you, Jay Durrah. And the Douglas, so, and Fannie Lou Hamer. So these are, again, different time periods. So
right. But I would consider most of these pretty recent, except the oldest piece in here is probably Looking Forward, which is the young man with the dreads, with the gray background. And that was...
Really?
Yeah, that probably was the earliest one that's here right now. Everything else has been done after that. And that period, I think there was no specific theme of that one. It was just... I did one early in my career of him, and it was like my signature piece, and I sold that one, and so I wanted to do another one. And this was a different, it was my nephew actually, and it was a different. I had two photos of him, reference photos that I was looking at. So this was a different reference photo, but the family piece I was kind of going through. I was calling that like the Survivor series. And they were mostly period pieces around 1900s or earlier in the 20th century, when, you know, times when, you know, black people were against some Jim Crow laws, and you could be lynched for any reason. Segregation was strong. So, but our families and our ancestors survived, so we could be here today. So that's what I kind of wanted to reflect. Like this one, I really wanted to show dignity and handlebars, because that's all we really had was our dignity. I mean, we couldn't do.
And that suit, I'm digging that suit.
You know, we couldn't really do a whole lot. But I mean, when we went to church, we felt our best because we were dressed up. And when we went out in front of white people, we had, you know, they would make sure they were looking their best. Even when I was a kid, I remember when we went shopping, if I went shopping with my grandparents, I had to put on a suit. And they put on their best clothes. Yeah, they put on their best clothes to go shopping. And it was just to show, I guess, to negate the negative stereotypes against us. So we were trying to show that we're more than your negative stereotypes.
Mm-hmm. So as you look back on your work, what do you consider your legacy to be? Or what do you want your legacy to be?
Part of it is I want it to be a reflection of our culture, of our history, and our culture. Okay. Some of our leaders, some of the periods that we've gone through as a community.
Okay, so you're wanting the viewers, the young people too, to be able to acknowledge and honor.
Yes.
Tell us who the baseball players there.
Okay, so the one at the bottom was Roberto Clemente. He was a Pittsburgh Pirate. And the one on the top is Josh Gibson.
Oh, yeah, Josh.
And so I had a show in Pittsburgh this summer, so I did those ones to take to Pittsburgh with me.
Was Josh Gibson in Pittsburgh?
He played for the Homestead Grays.
Oh, really? Okay, because
Yeah.
I know, I've seen him, different parts of.
Right, and I grew up near Homestead, so, yeah, so, I mean, he was waiting for me.
Great.
Yeah, but, and it was funny because it was just, the show was the same week, I think they included his stats into the national records. And he was the top of all the stats in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Roberto Clemente, everybody in Pittsburgh loves Roberto Clemente.
Mm-hmm.
And also, whenever I'm showing it outside of Pittsburgh, I get a lot of attention from Puerto Ricans. They love that painting.
So I have one last question, and then I can open it up to the audience. And this is always my surprise question. Well, maybe two. Is there, before I go to my surprise question, is there anything else that you want to share about your work, about what's going on, about anything about your art?
Okay. Well, one thing is my art has allowed me to travel a lot of places in this country. Well, on this East Coast, I haven't been to the West Coast yet, but I've traveled to, done shows in New Orleans and Miami and New York and Atlanta and Chicago, a lot of places on the East Coast. Also, in 2016, I had the opportunity to go to Rome for a group show at the U.S. Embassy in Rome, and that's one thing that I'm hoping that art will take me around the world. I want to see it. I want to, before it's time, before it's done, I want to see the world.
Second question before I get to the last one. So, what piece or pieces that you have painted that may be in your house or maybe other places still bring a smile, still inspire you when you see it?
That's kind of hard because a lot of them do. I mean, one, I really do love colors, so I look at a painting and I mean, I love them, but I'm a full-time artist, so they can all be sold. And I'll do another one. It motivates me to do another one. But so I kind of love them, like right after I'm finished them, right after I finish them. And it's normally the last one that I did is the one that I really love the best.
Okay.
And so the last one I did here is When the Storm Blows.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was actually, and in some of my later paintings also, I've been trying to incorporate more landscapes into my painting. Before I would just have an image. But
So
now,
why landscapes? Why that direction?
well, I'm just trying to expand on the my skills too, because I'm learning about doing that also.
That was the thing too I had mentioned to you about expanding and growing the textiles, because when you have the multiplicity, the layering, that I was just wondering, has there been any thought about textiles?
Well, I thought I love what people do with it, but right now it seems like a lot of artists are getting into it since Bisa Butler started. Well, I mean, before she did, other people did it too, but it seems like since she has blown up, a lot of artists.
She has blown up.
A lot of artists have gotten into the textiles, so I just didn't want to jump on the wagon. But I mean, I respect what everybody does, and I met Bisa. Well, I see her a few times when I go to Miami. She's always in Miami at Art Basel. And actually, I made it to one of her shows in New York last summer, too.
That's great. That's great you're able to do the traveling. So my last question. So if you could invite any three people from history to your studio or to dinner, in history or art, any three people in history or art, to dinner or to your studio, who would they be and why?
Okay. So one would be Frederick Douglass, for sure, because he's my hero, and I think I've done some awesome paintings of portraits of him. This is not, I just one of the busboys and poets of him also, but he's one of my heroes. And I would have to, I'd have to say my grandparents also, because they didn't really see, they kind of passed before I really got into this. And and also if they were still living, I would have them making money too. I would have my grandmother making quilts. I would be selling this stuff too, but I wish they could see how my art has developed.
So you're saying to your grandparents.
Mm.
Okay. One more.
Okay. I would, let's see, Malcolm X. Because I admire him and I've done some great paintings. I would like him to see the paintings I've done to him and maybe discuss some of his ideas.
Very good. Always very interesting people's responses. Real quickly, I had a young man who was a photographer. I asked him the same question, and he sat there and he thought, and he said, I would really like to invite Eartha Kitt. And I looked at this little 27-year-old little black guy, and I'm like, I didn't say that, what you know about Eartha Kitt? But he started talking about how sophisticated he thought she was. I just found it interesting that this little young man had found Eartha Kitt. So, and as I say, I get lots of interesting responses, and I appreciate yours. Okay, should we ask folk in the audience? Do I need to give them a microphone?
If you could just repeat the question.
Okay, all right. So anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Jay, your art is phenomenal, first and foremost.
Oh,
so
thank
thank you
you
for sharing it with us today. You were talking about how you prepare for a show. Can you talk a little bit about your creative process? How do you decide what pieces you want to create based on the show that you go to and the whole process?
Well, it's not that without as you may think, because I try to do a lot of shows, so it's really what I have available. But I try, and the size of the show also. So I do have a show coming up in New York, the 3rd through the 7th.
February?
Of
March?
April. I'm sorry,
April
3rd through the
Oh, okay, got you.
So, and I always loved, if I could do a whole series, that's great, but sometimes I don't have enough time to do that. So sometimes I'll see what colors I have that may go together. Like I've done shows where I had all the blue background pieces together. And one show, they actually were all part of the series, but I'll try to see if there's a relationship between the subject matter. But if I get opportunity, I would love to continue on this When the Creek Rises series for the show in New York. And I also have to think about how much space I have too, because the one I'm working on now it's a big piece like Baby, Sis, and Brothers. So I have to think how many. I might have to do some smaller pieces after that.
So you have a studio space, or you work in your house?
I work in my home.
That's always great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so you spoke about you want to travel a lot more. And so I'm guessing as an artist, when you do go traveling, what parts of traveling do you hope to get from it to kind of help you grow as an artist?
Okay. Well, it's getting exposure in different areas. I think a lot of people that are in art, I think they know me in this area, but different cities, people may not know me. And also, I would like my art to be seen internationally also, so I can say I'm an international artist. Well, I feel like internet makes you international, but still, I still feel like I want to go to these places because it's just a personal desire of mine to travel to. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about when do you know that you're done and it's good? Like, I'm an artist as well, not visual art, but I do performance art and I write. It's really hard for me to know when it's good enough that it's done. So I'm just curious, when are these good enough that they're done for you?
Am I supposed to repeat those questions? When do you know when the artwork is done? I'm sorry, I haven't been doing that. I'm just going right over my head. Okay, so your question was, when do you know when
the work is good enough to you when you can say it's done?
When you can say it's done.
That sometimes can be a difficult question because you don't know. Okay. Well, one thing I do, if I've gone through all the colors that I want to use, because if I've gone through all my colors and it looks pretty complete, then I say, okay, I think I can finish now. sometimes I remember I was working on this painting of Martin Luther King one time, and this was I left a lot of white space on it, and some people came over, some folks came over, and they told me just stop right there, and I'm glad I did because it was pretty much was done. So and sometimes my pieces are very minimalistic, where I try to see how I can convey a message with the least number of strokes as possible. So painting like this, it is easier to just stop and say, okay, are you satisfied? Are you satisfied? And also another thing I'll do is I'll put it up to a mirror and see if it looks good. Because if you put it up into a mirror, the mirror doesn't lie. So your eyes might deceive you a little bit. The mirror will tell you.
Yes, another question.
I have like a twofold question. The first question is like, how do you determine the value of a particular piece? And then the second question, I worked in the art space just a bit, several years ago, and the way that artists can receive payments sometimes is through the gallery, sometimes it's directly, and some of the artists that I work with, I think there's like this perception that if an art piece costs X amount of money, you have to have the cash right there, which is ideal, but there's also other ways to sort of work out payment, with the artists, some artists. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
So to repeat the question, the question is how do you value your work? And then shorten, what is the process? How do you take payment? Do you, sometimes, people think that you have to pay it all at once, but how do you work it? Or the gallerist working it?
So to value the work, it's based on a couple of things of who you are as an artist. I mean, how well known are you? And also, well, what I do is I look at how long I've been in the business, and I look at the shows I've been in, who I've been in shows with, and I kind of compare what their prices are, and I kind of compare what their sizes are too. Size is important to me also. So I base it on size, but also base it on what I think I can get for the painting, and what I used to get paid for it, and what my paintings are, and it's very important if somebody has bought something for something that you priced. If I price something at $10,000 and somebody buy a $10,000 piece from me, then I know I can charge $10,000. But if I haven't been able to sell anything for $10,000, I may not be there yet. So that's kind of one thing. And as far as payments, we take payment plans. We do layaway, and all time you have to be available. You have to be able to take all forms of electronic payments, all credit cards, and payment plans. I remember early on in my career, I had a young lady. She was in her 20s, but she wanted an original piece of art, and it took her. Well, she's not the first person who took a year, but it took her a year to pay for it. But she paid every month religiously until she got her payment.
And I'll just add to that, the gallery does offer payment plan options for the work here. So we do, and I have collectors that I have on payment plans that we've done in the past. So that is something that we offer here at Art of Noize.
And so we understand also that we may not be able to get paid. If we sell something, we may have to wait till it gets paid for.
Yes, ma'am.
So kind of following up on this train of thought, the business of art versus being an artist and focusing your time. Can you talk a little bit about the challenge of balancing that, or when does the artist to put on his business hat versus his artist hat?
To rephrase the question, talk a little bit about the business of art and how do you balance it?
So that's a good question because it does take a lot sometimes to be on the lookout for sales, for people checking emails and text messages when people are interested, and also you try to make sure everything's professional, your billing process is professional. the way you speak to people, the way you deliver your messages to people. You want everything to be professional, and also you're always thinking about what's the next show, what's needed for the next show. I invested a lot in my, because I used to do a lot of shows outside, so I had to invest in a tent. I bought walls that so I have a portable art gallery that I can take with me. And I bought a van so I can transport my art. So I think there's a lot you have to put into the business part of it. Think about the business part, and then you have to find time to paint. Because and part of my business is I do commission. So and then I also have my own ideas of what I want to paint. So there might be a period, I may have to take a month or so off from doing commission so I can get back to the pieces I want to do. So it's a lot to think about. And we can use help. If anybody's a professional who could assist, it's best when you have a team. But a lot of us do it by ourselves.
True that. Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel like, I'm sure you've gained a lot of artist friends, and do you feel like there's any advice or any techniques that you have gained over the years that you felt like made an impact in your work?
So to rephrase that, what advice would you give from your experiences as an artist that you would share with other artists and people coming out?
Well, one, I think you want to decide what type of artist you want to be. Do you want to just sell? Well, one thing you want to think about: do I just want to sell originals, or do I want to do reproductions of my pieces? That's one of the things you want to keep in consideration. And I learned that from being around other artists, because there's a lot of artists that do sell reproductions, and there's some artists that don't, and there's some galleries who will not deal with you if you do reproduction. So, and there's other galleries that will. So you have to take all that into consideration.
And I guess that's the thing that people we bump up against is that division of perhaps high art and no reproductions, and then most of us would take us 10 years perhaps to pay off some work, but it's really all about appreciating the art and not really trying to have that division, but unfortunately it's there.
It is.
It's really there. Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm enjoying the talk, and the art is beautiful. Welcome. And my question is, for Mr. Durrah, do you ever, so I write a lot, do you ever experience like the artist equivalent of like writer's block? And how do you get through it?
So repeating the question, do you ever experience the writer's equivalent of writer's block when you do your art?
Yes. So for me, that's what am I going to paint next? Or sometimes I don't feel like painting. So when I run into those situations, to get inspiration, I do a lot of. I generally have to see something to paint. So I take a lot of reference photos. So I'll just scroll through my reference photos and see if there's something that pops out at me, and hopefully something new will come out. But that's one thing I'll do. And then as far as not feeling like painting, sometimes you just have to do it. And again, you just, or maybe take a break, a day or two, no more than a week, but you just got to get back in there and start doing it.
Sometimes the older we get, the less we want to have to be on a schedule.
Yeah. And another thing, I might not feel like painting, but sometimes I'll feel like I'll draw something, and that it mixes it up a little bit. And actually next week, I started taking some sculpting classes like the past couple of years, but I started class taking a class at next week at Art League. sculpting. Trying to expand.
Any more questions? It's great.
Okay, I have
Go ahead.
a follow-up question. So, on a typical day when you're doing your art, what might your schedule look like? Like, do you always start at a certain time, end at a certain time? I'm just always interested in how different folks, writers, artists, musicians, when they like start and end their day and how their schedules can vary.
Okay, well, I generally start after I eat breakfast and everything. I'm looking online and looking at my emails to see if anybody's looking for some art. So that's the first thing I do. I want to see if anybody's looking for some art. Did I overlook anything? You know, because I've done that. I mean, not too long, but I've done that. You know, somebody might order something online and I might miss an email. But so I'm looking for things that I may have missed. And then I'm looking at opportunities, different shows I could sign up for, any new grants I could sign up for, you know. I'm taking care of the business part. And then after I do that, then like in the afternoon or evening, I go downstairs and start painting.
You listen to music when you paint?
Sometimes, lately I've been listening to audiobooks too.
Oh, okay. While you paint? Okay.
Yeah, because I used to read a lot, but once I started painting, I stopped reading, so now I can listen to audiobooks and paint too.
Nice. So we're gonna go to this side, and then we'll come back. I got something special for you.
So my question, you was talking about your reference photos and you use those to kind of help you form your paintings.
Yes.
How do you go about choosing your reference photos? And then, because I'm a librarian, I'm just curious, do you ever think of going into the archives and digging up some old photos? Because you talked about leaving a history and culture and legacy, so yeah, I'm curious how you go about choosing.
So for now, I like I told you, I like history too. So any documentary that comes on, especially about Black history, I'm like watching.
Stacks. What was it? Soul. What was that? Stacks Records. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I saw that. But generally I look at, because there's copyright laws and public domain. I like older documentaries. I mean, I like all documentaries, but if I'm looking at an old documentary, like about slavery or around the early 20th century, I might take some pictures of, what I see on TV.
Okay.
So I haven't gone to the archives yet, but when I was doing like my survival series, most of those paintings are from some old family photos that I had that have been passed down to me. So I do reference old paintings too.
Will you allow me to acknowledge some of the artists that are in the room?
Absolutely.
I know this gentleman with the Tim on.
yeah.
Can you introduce yourself to us and ask your question?
My name is Chinadu Felix Osuchukwu. I'm an artist as well.
We're talking skits, so can you slow down just a little bit?
I am from Washington, D.C., but I'm Nigerian, so I like to go by Igbo Washingtonian, Igbo land. But I was a former commissioner for the Arts and Humanities and ran across Jay's work a couple of times. But first, I would just like to say I just love your palette and how it relates to each subject matter, theme, and also want to ask you. I know you do commissions. I know you do your own work as well. How does that play a part? Is your commission work different from your work that you do, or you get the commission that everybody just say do what you want to do?
Yeah, generally, it's kind of understood. If somebody asks me to do a commission, they're not going to get your normal portrait. They're going to get a portrait like the way I paint. Because actually this Christmas, somebody's uncle asked me to, he wanted a painting of his girlfriend. But he knew I was an artist, but he wasn't really that familiar with what I did. So he was a little shocked when he seen it. But my friend talked a minute to him. He said, "This is how he paints. He paints like this all the time. Man, I thought you knew." So when he gave it to his girlfriend, of course she loved it. So it was okay. But he wasn't used to that. But yeah, if somebody asks, you have to ask me specifically to paint something different than what I normally do. If you want like something that, you know, a traditional portrait, you have to tell me that up front, or you're gonna get what I call my modern day impressionism.
But you were still painting in your style.
Yes, yes.
So, Professor, also, are there any other artists that are, or I should say, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Are there any other visual artists in the room? Because I know the young lady said she was a performance artist. I don't want to just, who else is an artist in the room? Okay, I'm sorry, did you share with us?
Hey y'all, I'm y'all. I miss y'all. The kids call me an abstract artist. I'm doing a graduate at Micah right now in community arts. That's it.
What does MICA stand for?
Maryland Institute College of Art.
Cool.
We got 3 of us in here that went to my day.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, well, I guess that we have no other questions or thoughts, but you know, Adrian didn't say anything. Do you have anything that you want to say before we close?
Well, thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Can we give that round of applause was for me, because that was the smallest one. But can we give a round of applause for Mr. Jay Durrah, please? Can we give another round of applause for our host today, Miss Carol Rhodes Dyson? Thank you.
Thank you all, and enjoy and stay safe.
And we have some refreshments in the back here. Please help yourself. We have QR codes around the room here that you can scan and get all the information about the show. Jay is here going to be here. I'm sorry, we have one more question.
Not a question.
Not a question.
I'm sorry. I'm Nancy Harbin. I'm a longtime friend, classmate of Jay Durrah.
Oh, hi.
And I just beam with pride about how Jay has lifted his art in such wonderful ways. I'm so proud of you, and I'm just glad that you are doing your thing.
Thank you.
Yes. So please stick around. Jay's going to be here. Please ask as many questions as you like.
Absolutely.
And let's get the party started. All right.